It wasn't until Monday that Donald Trump made an appearance in front of the cameras after a 4-day hiatus. And what transpired just made people even more worried about America's recent military action in Iran. The more Trump spoke, the more questions he brought up. With his words, he raised significant questions about the true purpose of this so-called rescue mission by the U.S. military, as opposed to clarifying things. The fact that he openly blamed NATO for failing to back the operation indicated that things had not gone as planned. A New York Times reporter once brought to Trump's attention that his stated intentions to attack Iranian nuclear sites and power plants would constitute war crimes under international law. What was Trump's reaction? He gave the journalist a tongue lashing right then and there. Trump may be the first sitting American president to openly discuss intentions that might be considered war crimes on television in what was a historic moment. Additionally, Trump disclosed a great deal more information about the operation than anticipated. In what was officially called a rescue operation for an airman from a downed F-15 fighter plane near Iran's Isfahan nuclear complex, he verified that hundreds of U.S. military personnel, dozens of fighter planes, and helicopters were involved. Due to the magnitude of the force, many experts have asked whether the real goal was to rescue or seize Iran's uranium. The result is not in doubt. The surgery failed. In firefights with Iranian troops, several U.S. troops sustained injuries. And the U.S. lost many planes in the process. 4 of their troops were also slain, according to Iran's Revolutionary Guard. This was a grave and expensive setback for the American military, regardless of how you look at it.
And don't forget, how many men did you send altogether, approximately, to the operation?
I'd love to keep that a secret.
Okay, well, we are. But I will tell you, the number, I'll keep it a secret, but it was hundreds and hundreds of these people. That's pretty good. Is he central casting? But hundreds of people went into this journey. Hundreds of people could have been killed. Forget about the equipment, a lot of equipment, nobody cares. Hundreds of people could have been killed. So we had people that were within the military that said this is not a wise, and I understood that, but I decided to do it.
On social media, Trump issued a harsh, expletive-laden warning to Iran just 1 day prior to his media appearance. It was obvious to everyone that there was a discrepancy between that online bravado and the reality on the ground. The backlash was immediate and originated in surprising quarters. Trump's assertions of victory were questioned by his inner circle, with some even expressing doubts about his mental condition. The fact that your own legislators are posing such queries indicates a lot. Additionally, it was not limited to the United States. Numerous Western media outlets seized on the story, and many made fun of Trump. The story was covered by foreign outlets, including Channel 7 News in Australia, adding to the international voices criticizing the narrative.
Good evening. It looks a very long way from the proud victory Donald Trump has been bragging about. He's now exploded in anger in a foul-mouthed tirade towards Iran.
The US president dropped the F-bomb and once again threatened to unleash hell on an enemy he claims he's already destroyed. His critics calling it a desperate outburst from an unhinged madman.
Larry C. Johnson, a former CIA agent, wasn't convinced either. Johnson openly came out to dispute Trump's version of the events. When someone with his history is skeptical, it has a lot of value, and it simply increases the mounting uncertainty.
Now here's where it really gets strange and doesn't, the explanations don't make sense. At that site, there were 2 C-130 aircraft. Those are fixed-wing aircraft with 4 propellers. The Joint Special Operations Command, JSOC, they have a special version of that plane which is sort of souped up. And then there are also 4 MH-6 Little Birds. Now these are small helicopters. If anybody's ever seen the movie Black Hawk Down, those little helicopters that come in to try to rescue the people that crashed in the Black Hawk, that's a Little Bird. Or the Little Birds that run strafing routes. They can carry, I think, a maximum of 4 special operations forces, either Delta Force or SEAL Team 6, one of the 2. But here's the key point. They only have a combat range of about 300 miles. Now, if you fly from Kuwait to this location in Isfahan, that's 250 miles. How the hell do you get back from there? Well, that explains why at least one of those C-130s was on the ground. They can carry a fuel bladder of gasoline that are aviation fuel that can refuel these aircraft. And then, but it's not clear if the other C-130 was there as well on that mission. It said that both got stuck in the sand, but some of the pictures that have come out and some of the video at least appears to show one of those in flame crashing into the desert. So I don't think we have an accurate count. What we do know is that in addition to losing the F-15, we lost an additional 2 Black Hawk helicopters. They're called Pave Hawks. We lost at least, got the 2 C-130s that were gone. Now we've got an additional 4 MH-6 Little Birds, and I think the reason they left them there, they didn't have enough fuel to get them back to safety. An A-10 Warthog went down, fixed-wing aircraft. So when you total it up, you're looking at about $400 million worth of aircraft that got shot down yesterday, just ostensibly to save one person.
The debate was becoming even more heated on the other side of the Atlantic. More analysts in the UK were criticizing Trump. The 25th Amendment, a constitutional clause that permits a president to be removed if unfit, was the topic of discussion. The concern was evident in the fact that this discussion, including a broadcast on Channel 5, took place on mainstream British television.
Absolutely disgusting. They need to plead the 25th. They need to impeach this man, take his phone away, he is unfit. It's utterly disgraceful. Because I tell you when the Strait of Hormuz was open, before they bombed Iran for absolutely no reason, we've seen people resign in America, top people just saying there was absolutely no threat of anything nuclear. Let's be clear, this is Netanyahu's idea. He was like, you'll be in and out in 4 days. The fact that this has been started, and if you look at who made the decision, an ex-Fox News host, basically an estate agent, his son-in-law, and him, there were no military people who were actually consulted as to what the repercussions would be, and now the whole globe is going to be suffering. And I tell you what, he's ruined America. He has ruined America, because what we're not talking about is the fact that Japan have done a deal with Iran to buy oil from them in Chinese currency.
It's easy to understand why the general public is losing patience. Trump has been at war with Iran for 6 weeks now. This is despite his prior pledge that the surgery would be finished in 4 to 6 weeks and his repeated assertions of smooth progress. The difference between what he says and what is actually going on couldn't be greater. The issue gets even worse in context. According to critics, Trump's policies are more about promoting Israel's interests in West Asia than about American national security. This is an agenda that, in their opinion, has only brought about widespread pain and devastation to the region. The fact that Trump seems unconcerned by the growing number of American fatalities only exacerbates the situation. It doesn't seem like he takes the human cost into account in his calculations. His annoyance at resistance is growing harder to hide. He made the statement yesterday that he will target Iranian civilian infrastructure with bombs, a breach of international law. Even after a journalist noted it would be unlawful, he doubled down on that threat today rather than retracting it. He didn't even flinch. He refused to budge. And maybe more than anything else, it reveals all there is to know about the current situation.
Thank you, Mr. President, for the question. Deliberate attacks on civilian infrastructure violate the Geneva Conventions and international law.
Who are you with?
I'm with the New York Times. Zolan from the New York Times. Are you
failing?
Are you concerned?
Circulation way down at the New York Times.
Are you concerned that your threat to bomb power plants and bridges amount to
No, not at all. No, I'm not. I hope I don't have to do it. But again, I just said 47 years they've been negotiating with these people. They're great negotiators.
Why would that
and because they're not going to have a nuclear weapon. And if somebody that takes my place someday is weak and ineffective, which possibly that will happen, because we had numerous presidents that were weak, ineffective, and afraid of Iran, we're never going to let Iran have a nuclear weapon. And if you think it's okay for people that are sick of mind, that are tough, smart, and sick, really sick, from a policy standpoint, from a standpoint, any which way you want to say, mentally, these are disturbed people. If you think I'm going to allow them, and powerful and rich, to have a nuclear weapon, you can tell your friends at the New York Times, not going to happen.
That means violating international law.
Quiet. You no longer have credibility at the New York Times.
Alan Ayar, a former State Department official, also added to the increasing chorus of worry. His viewpoint has special weight. Given his first-hand exposure to U.S. foreign policy and thorough knowledge of Iran, his message was another reminder of the criticism. The criticism of Trump's strategy is coming from individuals who have worked at the highest levels of government, not from the margins.
If you were Iran, would you have trusted and would you trust the United States today and negotiate with them again when you've been deceived time after time?
It's not inconsistent to apply pressure the same time you're seeking negotiations. Again, President Trump and his people thought will increase pressure on Iran. They're in a weak strategic position, which means that we can demand more than before. And that's why the demands became progressively more maximalist. The problem is they didn't realize that the weaker Iran became, the less likely it was willing to compromise, because Iran thinks that when you're weak and under pressure, if you succumb or capitulate or show weakness, that just invites more pressure. In terms of, you're right, twice the U.S. has struck Iran while negotiations were ongoing. So while they're willing to hear and receive messages about what the U.S. is offering, they're very, very cautious, because they know the United States, and more importantly, Israel, they know that Israel, let me rephrase that, is seeking to topple the regime as opposed to constrain its activities through negotiation.
In addition to the military setbacks, news broke that American and Israeli troops had attacked Sharif University in Iran, a university frequently likened to MIT. Take a moment to let that sink in. If you can't win on the battlefield, you start attacking schools. This conduct, that of nations motivated by annoyance and desperation, is not that of accountable world leaders. It is hard to avoid drawing comparisons between Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu at this time. Both are vying for damage. Trump is quietly pleading with Tehran for a ceasefire while loudly proclaiming victory. That contradiction by itself speaks volumes. You don't plead for a ceasefire when you're winning. For its part, Iran has flatly turned down the most recent ceasefire offer. Tehran has made its stance very obvious. It is not interested in a brief break. Iran wants a total halt to American and Israeli aggression. Iran would be making a grave error by following the path as Gaza, where Hamas accepted a limited ceasefire only to end up worse. The fact is that Iran now has one of the strongest economic levers, control of the Strait of Hormuz. Foregoing that would be a strategic error. Trump will not be able to maintain this war indefinitely. The longer it continues, the more the world economy feels the strain of higher oil costs, which will eventually be borne by regular Americans. Eventually, Trump will have no choice but to give up. The strain is already apparent. The denial of passage for 2 Qatari ships today serves as a sobering reminder that Iran's control over the waterway is still in place.
Iran is rejecting a temporary ceasefire proposal that would include the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz and pushing aside new threats by President Trump to attack its infrastructure and power plants. The back and forth follows the daring rescue of a U.S. airman who was shot down over Iran.
Rejects the notion of a temporary ceasefire. What does that mean? And we just learned that 2 Qatari tankers carrying natural gas turned around before transiting the Strait of Hormuz. So it is clearly still effectively closed this morning, despite the president's latest expletive-laden threats to destroy infrastructure, including bridges and power plants, if the strait stays closed.
Any lingering doubts about how dire the situation is for Trump are put to rest by his own words. He was still ranting about NATO today, upset and outspoken about the alliance's failure to support him. Consider the true significance. The head of a strong army feels abandoned. That is not the attitude of someone winning. That is the stance of a person in trouble, in need, and running out of choices. Trump inadvertently reveals to the world just how alone and overwhelmed he actually is every time he mentions NATO.
Look, we went to NATO. I didn't ask very strongly. I just said, hey, if you want to help, great. No, we will not help. I said, that's all right. You don't want to help? Because I've always said NATO's a paper tiger. See, NATO's a paper tiger. Putin's not afraid of NATO. Putin's afraid of us, very afraid of us. And he's explained it to me a lot of times. I got to know him very well. I know him very well. NATO's a paper tiger. NATO is us.
Today, that's all from me. I would like to express my sincere gratitude for your ongoing backing of this platform and independent journalism. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. It helps maintain independent voices like this. Each membership makes a difference. May God bless you all, and I'll see you in the next one.